right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today. Forrest Yoga. I need to give you a little tutorial of some objects we're going to be using. In general, I'd love to invite people to start just grabbing whatever you have for this class so we can play. So I have an extra blanket, a bolster, a rolled up towel, blocks, strap, and anything else that sounds interesting to you. So in particular, we're going to be doing some inner leg line work and quad work today. So definitely as large a towel as you can. And we're going to roll that up. And I'll break that down a little more when we get to it. So I'll invite you to find a way to ground your sit bones onto a seated position, into a seated position. And a general rule of thumb is knee lower than hip, either even or slightly lower. And then from there, beginning to sense the extraordinary architecture of the pelvis on your support. Plug your sit bones down, press down. And the intent that we are working with today is accessing the power within the heart. Before we go more specifically into the heart, let's put some ground underneath the heart. So coming to these bony landmarks of the pelvis as a way to have a very tangible earth energy, continuing with your sit bones, pressing down, and see how that is this beautiful way of rising. Often if we just try to rise up, it can cause over-efforting, but simply pressing down will cause this fluid rise that has grace and dignity and has a struggle-free quality. When we put that support of pelvis, of Muladhara, the root chakra underneath the heart, we have more access to the power of the heart. Feel for relaxing the abdominals and pressing down through the sit bones, lengthening the abdominals, lifting the architecture of the rib cage up and away from pelvis. And letting every single breath have this physical action of softening the rib cage first, so that you can then have a extraordinary breath, broadening and lifting the ribs, building a spacious place for your heart to inhabit its full power. And we'll start with coherent breathing, which is quite simple. If you like, you can place one hand to the front of heart, one hand to back of heart. And starting with a 4 count, simply allowing the count to be even. Inhale to exhale with no pauses. Softening the rib cage first, and then inhaling, broadening and lifting the ribs. Exhaling, softening the jaw, softening the throat. And what yoga teaches us is that we can actually use intent to direct prana. So allowing yourself to absorb life force energy right into the heart, both the physical heart and the energetic heart center of Anahata chakra. And what yoga teaches us is that the answers to what seem like world problems, big problems, personal problems, always begin and are always accessible in heart wisdom. And so if you like, you could hold up a specific emotional issue, world issue that you want to hold in consciousness as an embodied contemplation this morning. So if you like, you could do that now, choosing just one thing to offer this practice to. And letting every breath be time with your heart. And I'd like to just normalize that often, due to stress and trauma, there can be a blankness or a numbness when you attempt to do this heart work. So just normalizing that, if that's your experience, and just keep bringing your attention to being accurate with what you feel. So you could say blank, blank, and give yourself time until that shifts, if at all. And then we'll finish up our pranayama with some wrist stretches. So this extension to our heart. So everything we do in our lives has connection to our heart. We'll open up through the wrist. So we'll start with a version. It's like warrior 2 arms. And so just using this here to study pranavayu, so this meridian that runs heart and lung energy through the arms, and then begin to flex and then come down. Changing this in any fashion. If you want to roll the wrists, do that. Actually, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Roll the wrists. And then coming back to flexion. You can keep a micro bend in the elbows to keep you out of hyperextension. Inhale, broadening and lifting ribs. Exhale, curling down one finger at a time at your own pace. You can start with pinky, fourth, middle, index. Fold the thumb over, give the knuckles a squeeze, and then reach from the center of the chest. Inhale, spread the palms forward. Exhale, fold the thumb and give the thumb a squeeze, and then roll the pinky edge of the hand to the ground. So you're getting into the top of the wrist, you're typing and texting thumb. And then inhale like you're pressing out prana from your heart through to every meridian there. Exhale, curling down pinky, fourth, middle, index, fold thumb over, roll fists down, reach. Inhale, spread palms forward, widen across the carpal tunnel, pinky finger away from thumb. Exhale, fold thumb in, give thumb a squeeze, roll the pinky edge of the hand down. And then release the arms down. Take a feeling breath. So it's like making a noise when you make these physical movements, and then listening for an echo in the energy body when you pause. Let's come back to our mini twist that we've been doing. So stretch hands open. Feel for keeping the ribs somewhat quiet and down so you can really sense the torso. Inhale, lift ribs. Exhaling, coming, and then flowing at your own pace. Maybe even closing your eyes. Using this to make connection between the support of the pelvis and the lower chakras underneath the heart, so the heart has a ground to stand on. And then bring your awareness to, this is how I breathe when my heart is supported. And just sensing the self-nurturing discipline of asana practice to support bringing the full power of you into this world. And then come on back to center, release arms down, take a feeling breath. And then we'll work here, palms to the ceiling as much as you can, keeping shoulders as soft as you can. And then we'll flow a bit here, bringing the arms up and then reach to come down. Let's do that a few times, staying with this connection of keeping the pelvis grounded, feet active. How does that change the ability to release tension in the rib cage? Taking in the above energy, releasing skull bones, taking in the sun. If it is in fact sunny near you, it is sunny in Arlington, Massachusetts. Taking a feeling breath. All right, we're going to go into some lower body work to put some support underneath our heart. So this is where you may need a support underneath your pelvis, especially if you have hip flexor tightness, hip weakness, or general hamstring tightness. Go ahead and I won't break it down today. Just roll up a towel so you have something like this. We're going to grab it with the inner thighs and come on down to your back. So you can begin by checking in. My hair naturally gives my head a little bolster. Otherwise, I would put something else under there. So see if you want a little pillow for your head. And then you want to check in with your ribs. You want to get the low back ribs in contact with the floor. And then give yourself time to steady your rib cage here. And then begin to bring the attention down to the sit bones, towards pelvic floor. So a lot of time we have weakness, tightness, disconnection into the inner quads and inner thighs. So we're going to go after them a bit right now. First, bring your legs straight up and see if you feel like you're working here. Put something under your hips. So I'm going to do that with my bolster. It could be something less. It could be a half yoga block, a towel. I find the bolster great because I work very much less in my hip flexors, which are an issue for me right now. So just play around so you can put your legs out without feeling like you're working really hard in your hips or your lumbar spine, right? And then with shoes, often the lower legs get rotated in all kinds of ways. So it's an oversimplification to say internally rotate the thighs, but we'll work with that today, knowing that it's much more nuanced with the lower bones, but we'll focus on the thigh bones, right? So just get a sense of some movement here. And then begin to get a hold of something that you can put between your inner thighs. And if that feels clunky, you can go below the knee too. It's just, you want to scissor the legs. So you're grabbing something and making a straight up scissoring action. If the knees are bent, that's no problem. Keep the knees over the hips and find that scissoring action, right? And then just take a moment there. So it's not like you're trying to juice an orange, but you are grabbing onto that thing substantially, but it's not the hardest you can do, right? Stay there for a few breaths. And then begin to get a sense of sending the object towards you. So you're externally rotating thigh bones, coming into this V shape with the feet. I call it Charlie Chaplin feet. And then like you're trying to send the roll forward to someone, internally rotate, and then come between those two actions. Keep a squeeze on your object. Say hello to your medial quads and your adductor line. Do a couple more at your own pace if you got a few more. And then go ahead and release your block. If you can do it with your propped legs, come into as if you were sitting cross-legged. Let's do right leg in front. If that does not work, you can come into Baddha Konasana or feet flat. And then just feel into what did that do. If you have further to go, take that right foot onto the left calf. So that's going to increase the opening in the right hip. Take a few breaths there. And then switch sides. Take the left foot onto the right calf. If you're in Baddha Konasana, breathing, pressing feet together. And then from there, come on back. And then let's go ahead and bring one leg straight up. Strong reach, like you're moving that thigh bone. And then put your hands on your pelvis. Find your pubic bone and you can walk to that space between pubic bone and frontal hip points and just massage a bit. That can be pretty tight and inflamed on many people, just studying what you got going. And then from here, turn that foot out so you're in external rotation. Keep the pelvis and the ribs as stable as possible. And then from there, tap that foot towards the ground, any amount. If you start moving the pelvis, you've gone too far. Keep pelvis stable. Come back up. Do one more after this. And then place the foot down, take a feeling breath. And then recenter, pubic bone, hip bones, whole pelvis stays as stable as possible. Ribs stay on the ground. Straighten up. And then begin to keep your hands on pelvis, steadying the stability. Lower the leg only as far as you can go. Keep the right foot pressing into the ground, come back up. Do 3 more total. And actually, I did it without turning my leg out. So if you were doing one of each, so if you turned your leg out, check that box. And then the next time, do the leg neutral. Sorry about that. So we'll come back to the right leg. This time, keep the toes facing, flexing towards the shin, and then do 3 of those. Notice the difference. Only go as far as you're not moving ribs and pelvis. You might see some clicking show up, especially if it's your challenge side. I'm getting some clicking there. And take a pause. Coming to the other side. If you kept the foot straight that time, turn it. If you turned it, come straight. I'm going to turn since I forgot to do that last time. And come down. Perhaps noticing how the inner quad and the inner leg line work more when the toes are turned out. And then from there, bring feet flat. If it's okay for you, feet together, knees wide, place hands on pelvis. Keep a light press of the feet into each other. And then from there, help the legs back together. From here, coming off of your prop, lowering down, and then roll onto one side. Keep neck relaxed. Come up to your tabletop. And then really give yourself time to feel into your hands, press the ground away, lengthen back through the tops of the feet. And then from here, coming into those flowing alternate limb extensions, keeping pelvis stable, reach left leg back and right arm forward, thumb to the ceiling. Going at your own pace to feel the relationship between hip, in this case, right hip, left shoulder, left hip, right shoulder. You can play with pointing and flexing through the foot to see how that wakes up different parts of the legs. And then pause. Let's get into some lateral work here. So if the roll can help you find the inner leg, you could grab onto something, sometimes a block. I'm going to try the block just for fun, even though it's a cork block the wide way. Little extra weight. I'm going to inhale across my back bottom ribs, press the ground away, and then on exhale, I'm going to look towards the left foot. Inhale to center, exhale, squeeze block, look towards the right foot. And then just sensing that relationship of pelvic stability and heart support, power of the heart, being more available when the lower body is stabilized. If you feel like you want to move out excess stress, extend through the exhale. If you feel like you want to bring the energy up, extend through the inhale. Releasing the prop if you have one. And let's do some half frog. And then for today's purpose, we'll go into hovering the knee first on the left, hovering the right arm. Maybe you're staying right here. Begin to take that leg out, really prioritizing pelvic awareness rather than how high the leg lifts. For today, take that right arm into goal post. And then feel into pressing into everything that's contacting the ground to create support. And then begin to bring the knee back, heel towards the ceiling. You could keep the arm lifted or down, and then pulsing the heel towards the ceiling a few times. And then releasing the leg, placing that down. Take a feeling breath. Listen for the echo of all of that. And then from there, begin to hover right knee, hover left hand, come into goal post. Slowly taking the leg out to the side. Finding one spot for your gaze. And then from there, shifting into thigh parallel-ish to the ground or parallel to the ground, arm up or down, pulse the heel. So you're contracting hamstring insertion, contracting low glutes. Bring the both limbs down. And then from there, let's go ahead and come into some rhomboid push-ups. So these muscles right at the back of heart, in between shoulder blades. Contract the shoulder blades together. And then feel for pressing the ground away, moving the shoulder blades apart. Squeezing shoulder blades towards each other, and then pressing the ground away, lifting the part of spine. You can either let the neck come along for the ride or just keep the neck neutral. And then take a feeling breath. Option to grab a prop or not. You could grab a towel or grab a block. So again, grip often increases our responsiveness and awareness of proprioception, our body and space. Press the ground away. Grip and pull. Keep the hips as square as you can. Reach up, pausing there. Feel for those two actions of pushing and reaching. And then dial it through. Tap your prop or your hand on the ground. And then take this at your own pace, using it to wake up chest muscles. Wake up everything that you can find in the shoulder girdle, the upper back. And then taking some improvisation here, circle forward, and then play with nourishing the elbow, nourishing the wrist joint, seeing what else feels good here, what makes connection into the power of the heart, what moves the heart energy through your hands so that everything you touch has the power of your love. Release your prop, take a listening, feeling breath. And then finding those developmental movements here. Press, push, grab, pull, reach. Feeling for the actions with heart energy behind them. Tapping through, coming back. Tapping through, and then again, starting with one circle like you're swimming, and then playing with nourishing the joints, elbow, the glenohumeral joint where the humerus sets into the socket, the wrist, all of the bones in the hand, shoulder blade, lats. And then release your prop, take a feeling breath. From here, let's come into dolphin with palms up. Option to bring knees up or knees down. Excuse my wardrobe adjusting today. So shoulders right over elbows. Wrap around the triceps so you're really engaging that press of the ground away. Bring the palms facing up. If you have wrist tightness like me, it's going to be some effort to get the thumbs towards the ground, no problem. Press the ground away. With the backs of your hands, with your elbows, with your forearms, with your upper arms. Move the shoulder blades away from the ears. Let the head go. This could be plenty with knees down. Lots of juicy information here. If it's interesting to you and you have the shoulder health and stability, curl the toes under, lift the hips. Wherever you're working, keep stretching your hands open. Move the power of your heart through to every meridian into your fingertips. Feel for the power of the pelvis, lifting the hips up and back. Draw the front ribs towards the back ribs. If the knees are still lifted, gently place them down and then sit back into embryo. Knees wide, you could pad behind the knees. It's great to place a block under your head sometimes. And then bring the arms next to the torso. So you were just in deep external rotation. Now you're in deep internal rotation. Connect to the power that exists within your heart. Noticing you can. From here, come back to tabletop. Next pose is turbo dog with the option of down dog. So from tabletop, hands come forward to hands with distance. Press the ground away. Slight bend of the elbows. Set the upper arm bone towards the ground. Squeeze inner elbows. Relax neck. Curl toes under. And then you want to take that frontal hip point and like you're going to put the front of the hip as far back as you can. So you're really nurturing the hip flexors, making space in that place that gets so bunchy from too much zooming and sitting. I've been really loving going wide as my yoga mat, keeping my knees bent to make space and nourishment in the hip flexors. You could try that. From here, in any fashion, get your feet to your hands. Hands could come halfway to your feet. Get the outer edges of the feet parallel. And then from there, keep hips back. Use your hands to press that back, to coach that. And then come up with a flat back. So you're using the power of your hip rather than your lumbar spine. Come on up. And let's find some fluidity in the bunchiness. I've talked to you a lot one-on-one, so I know a lot of us have bunchiness and all kinds of stuff in our hips. So let's come to that place of front hip points, back over the ankles, feet parallel. Outer edges of the feet parallel to the long edge of the mat. And then from there, find your big imaginary ball. So you're broadening back ribs. Let the front ribs soften in. Hips stay back over ankles. And then from here, let's try that again, just because I lost what I was doing. Hips back, hinge forward, big ball, and then use your glutes. Sit bones reach down, which is the same action as pubic bone lifting. Bring the hands to touch. Sweep up, lift your ribs, and then exhale, hips back, hinge forward. Lunge, left leg is stepping back. Grab your blocks. Option to use a strap for where we're headed. Get extra padding if you need it underneath the knee. Press into both feet. Get your frontal hip points back, in this case, over the knee since we're down. And then use your glutes, especially the right side here. Contract down, stabilize, and then lift your heart. From there, grab onto your skull bones, reach elbow tips forward, coming into brain cradling. Lift your skull bones up. Give yourself time to find out how is your heart taking in the support of this pose. Let's do a side bend. Hold on to the right hip, and then reach left arm up. Keep the front ribs softening in and down, and then reach up and over. Keep this stable. Use the glutes. Use whatever you can to press into the floor so that you can soften the intercostal muscles. You could use the right hand to coach that. And then from there, come on up. Step back into a plank. And then you decide, knees up or knees down. Make one line with your torso and your thighs. And then let's really practice finding that internal rotation. I'm in Sphinx, but you can be laying all the way down. Lift your right leg, reach it back, and then using the muscle memory of what we did with the roll. Roll the inner thigh in. Get the pinky toe edge of the foot settled. Reach the left leg back. Feel that medial quad and inner thigh. And then keep all of that. And you could stay in Sphinx. You could come into Sphinx or you could be in Crocodile. Feel for breathing into the inner leg line. As if you had a block to help you. Reach through the inner legs, feel the quads, especially that inner quad, reach back. And then let's do some cobra push-ups here. So either hands under shoulders, or you could come wider and forward, whatever gives you the most purchase in feeling the power of your heart. Legs stay solid, quads stay rooted, pubic bone presses down, and then finding out, you can let it be as small, like an invisible cobra. Whatever degree you're warmed up enough here, use your legs. Traction each set of ribs forward, traction the abdominals long. And then take a feeling breath here. Let's do a little more quad work. Keep the right foot pressing down, bend into the left knee. If you got it, you could reach for the foot, you could grab a strap. You could reach for the top of the foot or the ankle. Keep a strong reach through the right inner leg. And then switch sides. Reset, strong legs. Press into the top of the left foot, bend the right knee, reach for the foot. Pressing foot into hand and hand into foot. And release. Hands under shoulders, come through your tabletop and back into either turbo dog or down dog. Turbo dog is a great way to keep out of hyperextension. Slight bend of the elbows, hugging in. Playing with that bent knee pose if you like. And then this time, left leg is coming forward. So again, you could step wide or step straight up the mat. Press the ground away with whatever is making contact. Get some information about your basic moves. Feet active, pelvis stable, front hip point and back hip point. What is even? And then come into your opposite interlace. Press into the front heel and the top of the back foot. Separate the back teeth. And then coming into a side bend, hold on to the left hip. Keep the front ribs softening in and down like you're breathing into your back ribs on the floor, reach up and over. Use the right low glute and hamstring insertion to stabilize the hip. Breathe into releasing through the hip flexors. Come on up, and then from there, step up. And again, Tadasana legs, hips back, press that hip point back over the ankles. Coming up, using that as a hip strengthening transition. Hands come to touch. Let's come into tree pose. So getting outer edges of the feet parallel. Stabilize through. I'm doing right leg first. I like to use this home base press, spreading through the bones in the wrist, and it can be really nice to play with what that foot is doing. I like to sometimes do the bony part of the inner ankle to the calf, so I find another place in the calf that I don't usually access. Maybe you come foot to calf, but prioritize pelvic stability. So maybe you're going to the inner thigh, but if you start to shoot the hips out, come on back. Find the tripod of the foot, right heel, base of the big toe, baby toe side of the foot. Checking in with your heart, feeling the power of your heart. Shake it out or find stillness. And then get the left edge of the foot parallel to the long edge of the mat. Press the hands together. And then play with, maybe you're gonna find another place of the inner calves that you don't usually use. Prioritizing inhabiting the stability of the pelvis to nurture the full power of your heart and your heart's consent. What does your heart say yes to? Giving yourself time for your heart to speak to you all the time it needs. Approaching your heart with reverence. Coming back to Tadasana. And then from here, come back to sweeping up, coming forward, head heavy, and then coming into your flat back. From here, come on down, line your whole right side up with the long edge of the mat. And we're gonna come into lounge lizard. Grab your roll. You can do this with your attention as well, but having an object can be useful. So a pillow would work. Many things would work. Grab onto your thing. And then similarly, find your ribs and the relationship to the pelvis. And start with outer edges of the feet parallel like we work with in Tadasana. If this is tweaking on your shoulder, you can lay all the way down. And then come into that same action, rolling the thighs in and then sending the prop forward. You can sort of roll a bit on the outer hip to find that here. It's a little bit tricky because the weight is pouring into the lower leg, but you can see what you got. And then come back to outer edges of the feet parallel. Bring your awareness here to what can you soften? Can you completely relax the belly here? Keeping a light engagement through the legs, but letting it be an integration pose, heading towards Shavasana. If you do a lot of stuff with your right side, I notice there's much more bunchiness in the muscle fibers. Carrying things can do that. And so just getting some information about where your adhesions are, where you could use breath support. And then whatever you got, you can lengthen the ribs away from the hips here. So for me, pressing down and forward was a really nice side body. Whoo, opener, play with that. Point and flex perhaps. And then take it to the other side. Line yourself up. Hip, shoulder, ankle, grab onto your prop. You can be on your forearm or laying all the way down. And then just see what this shift in relationship to gravity, doing these same actions in different planes is a really great way to work sustainably. So you're not trying really hard one time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Rolling the prop as if you're sending it behind you and then sending it forward a bit. And then resetting to a very purposeful sending it back. Getting the hips back in line with the ankle, reach through the legs, and then bringing your attention to the belly can be really nice. We talk a lot about vagal tone, the soul nerve. So a practice that I learned from a book called My Grandmother's Hands by Resma. I'm forgetting his last name right now. Begins with an M. Is simply circling the belly. Because 80% of that vagus nerve lives and wraps around the guts. Sending breath support there. And guess what? It's innervated right to the heart. So when your gut intelligence is turned on, your gut and your heart can work together, right? Press into the ground and pull the side ribs away from the hip, lengthening the side body. Taking any other micro movements there. And then go ahead and release that. Come on down to the back. We'll just take a little bit of leg shaking and tapping here. So just balancing the calf muscles gently, taking care of your joints, and then walking around a bit to nurture your heart. It could be just some finger tapping on sternum or a whole hand. And then when that feels complete, Shavasana. Sometimes it can be really nice to let your limbs be wide away from torso to highlight the horizontal plane and the energy of gravity. All of us need support for our heart right now, and all of us need to inhabit the full power of our heart. And letting yourself feel or resourcing your heart by letting your heart be held by its home. In many traditions, there's a celebration of the sweetness of light and celebration of children this time of year, Hanukkah, Diwali, Christmas, all of these that came out of humans coming together to support each other as we began to dive down into winter. Letting yourself feel into that deep, dark solstice quality and the transformational quality of that. And how simultaneously the lights that we offer and wave, the sweetness that we offer within these cultural traditions, one can't exist without the other. And allowing yourself to feel into the power of your heart to hold all of that. As you're ready, rolling yourself onto one side, staying connected to the earth plane, earth energy, letting your bones stay heavy, and then pressing into the ground to feel through the transition from horizontal to vertical. And then bringing the hands to touch to seal this yoga ceremony. Thank you.